forum. And remember that if you have questions that you would like to have asked during this evening's session, please fill them out on one of the cards. One of our sorters will pick them up from you. The lady in the blue will just raise your arm. She'll come over to you, and we'll make sure that do our best to ask all the questions that we can in the time that we have available. So again, this evening for this forum, each candidate will begin with an opening statement that will be 1 minute long, and they will have 1 minute to answer each of the questions that we ask. They'll have 1.5 minutes for their closing statements. Again, reminding you to hold your applause until the very end, and that there are no signs or T-shirts or other candidate paraphernalia in the forum this evening. So the order we'll be going in tonight is Rigel Robinson will be first, followed by Aiden Hill, followed by Cesc Rosales. So we'll do them in order for their opening statements, and then we'll reverse that order at the end, and we'll mix up the questions starting with different people each time. So we'll begin the opening statements with Mr. Robinson. Please go ahead.
Good evening. It's so good to see you all here, and thank you for showing up and for your shared interest in the future of the city. My name is Rigel Robinson, and I'm running for Berkeley City Council in District 7. I think any conversation about this race or this district needs to start with the story of how we got here. 4 years ago, students at UC Berkeley led a movement to redraw the lines of District 7 to create the first student supermajority district in the entire country, with the vision that one day students would elect one of their own to be their voice in City Hall. Whoever is elected to represent District 7 will need to balance the needs of students and neighbors, the campus, and the city. And I'm running for City Council because I have been doing that work. Last year, I had the privilege of serving the students of UC Berkeley as the External Affairs Vice President of the campus's Student Association. And in that space, I galvanized District 7 residents around the closure of all debates, mobilized dozens to the Planning Commission to fight for more student housing now, and was a leader in the lobbying efforts that made sure that students in UC Berkeley and students across the state didn't face a tuition hike this year. I look forward to bridging those barriers and more as your next City Council member in District 7.
Thank you. Aiden Hill, please.
I'm sorry. I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want to help others. Israeli, Palestinian, incarcerated, houseless. And to the Ohlone people, as a candidate on behalf of the People's Republic of Berkeley, I'm sorry we've neglected you for so long. When I met with Chase Iron Eyes from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, he told me that the keys to life belong to all of us, and all we have to do is look around. For Nia Wilson, who should be attending UC Berkeley. For Kayla Moore, who should still be alive on Alston Way. I, Aiden Hill, pledge to give you, the people of Berkeley, justice, and I will fight for a Berkeley that works for all of us. I'm not here as the representative of the City Council, though I have attended nearly every meeting since my candidacy. I'm not here as a representative of every student, even though my student status is pending because of anti-poor policies. But I am present, and I'm here even though this machine doesn't want me to, and I hope to be your District 7 representative. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rosales.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Cesc Rosales. I'm running for Berkeley City Council, District 7. I believe I'm the best candidate for this seat to represent District 7. I'm a longtime community organizer and fighter for social justice. I'm a refugee from the Marcos military dictatorship, a lesbian and an immigrant. I have long been fighting for my rights and the rights of others my entire life. My experience as a small business owner for over 20 years puts me in a unique position to represent the business owners, small business owners on Telegraph Avenue. I'm a longtime resident of Berkeley. I am a co-creator of a co-housing community here in District 7 for over 18 years. It's an innovative approach to home ownership. We created this on our ability to compromise and arrive at solutions. I was radicalized, an activist, when I was a university student. I feel I can represent long-term residents, tenants, and students in District 7.
Thank you. And my apologies, there's a computer here that is making this lovely harmonic sound. I'm not quite sure how we can turn that off, so apologies. It's not anyone's cell phone up here. It's a computer down in here making some noise. So we'll see if we can fix that. So on to our first question, and we'll begin with Aiden Hill. And again, we'll switch around who starts with each question. How will you address public safety and the rising rates of crime in Berkeley?
Thank you for that question. The first thing I want to do is make sure that everyone in our city has adequate nutrition. That includes plant-based diets, that includes access to water, as well as drug rehabilitation shelters. We need to make sure that we are not criminalizing the most poor or the most at risk within our city. And that means we need to rethink about how we have the police agency, as well as institutions that profit off of its criminalization. As your District 7 representative, I will make sure that we have a pathway for those who are facing addiction, as well as making sure that everyone has the opportunity to live in a house in Berkeley. Within 1 year, I pledge that we will have tiny houses, enough for 1,000 people, with the same amount of money that our current administration has used to house 25. And I'll make sure that we all can have a Berkeley that works for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rosales.
Safety is a big issue here in Berkeley, and we all know that. Students are sitting in their cafe and somebody runs in and grabs their laptop. And I know that the city is trying very hard to provide safety for our community. And I believe that more community policing would be good, a combination of a partnership between the community and our police force they're hired to do their job to protect our community. So in my capacity as a council member, I will make sure that the safety of our community is ensured, is a top priority in trying to find ways and means to mitigate this feeling of unsafety, especially around campus. There should be a more coordination between UC Campus Police and our city's police department. So those are some of the ideas I have now, and there are some more, but I don't have the time, so I'm just gonna let it go.
Thank you. And Mr. Robinson.
Crime seems to be almost an epidemic in District 7 in the South Side neighborhood. Snatch and grab robberies are a regular occurrence, and day-to-day, students and residents alike receive updates about muggings that occur just blocks from them, including my roommate. And fortunately, he's lucky that incident didn't end any worse than it did. We need to expand late-night transit options in the South Side neighborhood and also work to improve lighting in our neighborhoods. Many bus stops especially don't have lamps nearby them, and as a result, District 7 residents and students don't feel safe using the options that already exist. For this reason, we've seen increasingly more and more people getting home and walking home to their neighborhoods through District 7 by way of Lyft or Uber because people don't feel safe walking back from campus. That is unacceptable, and when I sat on the 4x6 committee, the Student UC City Relations Committee, as the External Affairs Vice President of the campus last year, we worked to push PG&E to do more on this front, and as a City Council member in District 7, I will advance those efforts because everyone should feel safe in this city.
Thank you. We'll begin the next question with Ms. Rosales. This is about housing. What would you do to address the housing crisis in Berkeley, particularly for middle-income residents who don't qualify for housing subsidies, and for our children who we hope may be able to continue to live here in the future?
Build, build, build. We need more housing. And that's always the emphasis on what we're trying to do. Without the supply, the demand is there, everything is going up. So every levels of in our community are affected, whether it's middle income, lower income students, renters. We're all affected by this lack of supply in our city. I will support, and just work on trying to get more buildings, housing done. I know that UC Berkeley is trying to also step up. They have plans for more building of more housing for the students. In our city, there is the 135 million housing bond that is on the ballot, and we hope people will support that. It's not big enough. 135 million sounds good, but it's not big enough, but it's a start so that we can really watch and look at what we can do to respond to our need for housing in the city.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
I'm glad Seth shouted out the bond. We can start by passing measures O and P, and I'm really glad that our city council is unanimous in supporting each of these. The city sometimes seems to be divided by people that think we need to build more housing and people that think we need to protect tenants, and I think that division is a little nonsensical. We do need to protect our homeless residents and we need to defend our vulnerable tenants, but we also need to be building a housing stock for the future. Especially around the campus community, we need to densify and build the student housing that we need so students aren't living further and further from campus and further gentrifying the rest of Berkeley and the East Bay at large. But we also need to be smarter about densifying and building up along key transit corridors. We must upzone strategically and make sure that the city can account for the needs and the housing crisis of the future. We do need to say yes to more units, but we're allowed to have high standards for what those units are, which is why I'm so grateful to have the endorsement of the Building Trades Council of Alameda County to make sure the new development that happens in our city hires locally and is to the mutual benefit of all parties.
Thank you. And Aiden Hill.
Thank you. And I definitely agree with Roger Robinson that we do need to build. I believe that we should build smarter and not larger. Unfortunately, we have, for the last 20 years, high-rises encroaching on UC Berkeley campus territory. This is a danger in case of a natural earthquake, and I support People's Park and have talked with members of People's Park to make sure that we have a green space within all of this gentrification as well as high-rises that are populating our city. We cannot continue building and building our way out of a problem and throwing money at it. We have to make sure that we're building smart. And that's why I've endorsed Cat Brooks for Oakland Mayor, in which we'll both build tiny houses using new technologies, information communication technologies through 3D printing models to ensure regionally everyone in the Bay Area has a place to live. You see, we have thousands of beds available in Berkeley right now. We just need to communicate with each other and bring the community together as a result. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question, we'll begin with Mr. Robinson on this one. What is your position on homeless people sleeping and sitting on the sidewalk, and should there be different sets of rules for this behavior in the downtown area?
The reality is that right now, for many people, those sidewalks are homes, and they are still people. And we need to make sure that city ordinances and city laws respect that and try to work with that. These are people that need help and that we should be doing everything that we can to support. Our long-term approach to the homelessness crisis needs to be one that is housing first, but we can't start by criminalizing homelessness. I'm supportive of efforts that have already existed to expand the city's the services that are being provided to homeless residents and make sure that we have emergency shelters available, but it's concerning that we don't already have an emergency shelter that's available all year. That should be our first priority. And I also think, and I recall this being a question for a different district, and maybe it'll come up in a bit, looking toward legalizing an encampment for the city to streamline delivery of city services may be an important piece of the puzzle. We need to make sure that we're respecting the homeless residents that we're trying to help, but also working to address the long-term need.
Thank you. Aiden Hill.
Yes, so the recent Sidewalk Ordinance, which I had the pleasure of fighting at the Berkeley City Council meeting, was cruel and inhumane punishment. And we need to say that first and foremost. This Sidewalk Ordinance in which human beings are being treated as property is cruel and inhumane. Street dwellers are people like you and I who have intelligences such as you and I and who have been unfairly treated by this current housing market. Instead, I support housing measures as well as budget allocations for tents, sleeping mats, travel goods to make sure that we protect those who are most affected by this upcoming winter. We don't have time to argue over high-rises that will take 4 to 7 years to develop. We must protect our Berkeley citizenry now, and especially when climate change and climate refugees are going to be coming to the Bay Area in waves by the next summer. We must take immediate action, and I believe I have the tools to make sure that everyone in Berkeley is protected during this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rosales.
Sometimes we see a lot of homeless people in our center, in our community. And I think sometimes we forget that they're human beings too. We must treat our homeless community with compassion and dignity. I stand for having each and everyone housed. I want a housing available, and I know that's not a simple answer. We need our housing stock to be improved. That's why I'm really in favor of building more housing. The only way that would be really, I believe, compassionate is providing housing, a roof over our community's head, and they have a warm home to come home to, or services that are needed depending on the needs. The individual should be seen for what they need, why they are on the street. The street is not safe, we know that, and we need to be able to house the community. The other thing is, I live in a co-housing community. We have an innovative approach to housing. So there's not one answer to how to build, and we want to make sure we look at all those alternatives that could be available to us.
Thank you. And this next question follows on the previous question a bit. We'll begin with this one with Aiden Hill. How would you deal with services to our homeless population if measures O and P do not pass?
That's a great question. So I am currently looking into TRICARE systems in order for all of our Berkeley residents to have, at the very least, mental health awareness and services, addiction relief and recovery, dentistry, and general care. This system has worked for our federal government's Army services and has worked quite nicely. I think we can bring that to a regional level if anything happens to Alta Bates or those housing measures and do not pass. Likewise, I want to make sure that we're communicating directly with the houseless community. I've taken it upon myself to talk to members of various sanctioned and housing camps, the people who had occupied the lawns of City Hall, the people of People's Park to see what they truly need most. And a lot of that comes down to less policing, more opportunities for economic development, sustainable housing or shelter, and making sure that everyone treats them with dignity and respect moving forward. These are all things that as human beings we can solve amongst ourselves. And I hope to lead by the conversations moving forward to make sure there's equity between both populations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rosales.
It's really important that we increase and improve and add more money to providing services to our homeless community. Every time I don't like saying homeless only because when you say homeless, you put everybody together and you lose what each individual needs. There are people with mental illness, people that are drug addicted, people are or lose their homes because they were kicked out of their homes because they're gays or lesbians and the family do not want them to stay with them. So each individual needs services. I like the navigation center approach of providing services to the homeless community because you can look at each person and take a look at what they need individually and provide the specific service. In San Francisco, they had been successful in a way where as they approach each individual, they're able to give them the service they need. And some of them are even reunited with their families, and they actually just needed to be connected. And that help made it possible to look at the problem a little more compassionately.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
I appreciate the hypothetical. I want to declare that that will not be our reality on November 7th because we're all going to work together and make sure these pass. But moving forward, we need to be smart about our priorities. Life on the streets is not a long-term solution, but it is an immediate need, and we need to be doing what we can to make sure that that is as possible, accessible, and fruitful as it can be. We need mobile showers. We need to expand storage options for the homeless. I appreciate the shout out to navigation centers. I believe that the one we've been looking at, though, has been extremely costly in the plans that currently exist. And we need to do more to get creative and try to find more cost-effective solutions to these issues. And I really do believe they're out there. Our city needs to do more to partner with nonprofits and a lot of the new tech that is finding creative new ways to solve these problems. And I look forward to tracking down those solutions as a city council member. Got it.
Thank you. On to the next question. And we'll begin with Ms. Rosales on this one. Do you support remaining in Urban Shield? If yes, why? If no, how would you fight to leave it? Ms. Rosales.
My understanding with Urban Shield is that it provides training and materials for our police department. I support our police department getting the materials they need and the training they need to continue their job and perform their job, which is to protect our community. I am not in favor of militarization. I do not want our police department to be a militarized adjunct to the military. So in my sense, I know that Urban Shield has whatever the money they have to protect, to provide services and training. I think our police department could use that. But yes, I will always just say no militarization. That's all I want.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
I was supportive of the subcommittee of the council's recommendation to pull out of two key parts of Urban Shield that we recognize were deeply alarming and contributed to exactly this militarization of our police departments that we've been talking about. But this issue in particular has been an enormous drain on the council and the city's attention for the last year. And I think there are much deeper issues at play there, and that's the community's distrust and lack of trust with the police department. And our involvement with Urban Shield it's one of many ways we can address this issue, but I don't think it's by any means the most important. We do need strategic community policing strategies to make our neighbors and our communities feel better in touch with BPD. We also need to really lead the way on police oversight in meaningful ways. I was supportive of the ballot measure that the council actually ultimately approved to send to the ballot, but didn't quite make it there. And I look forward to seeing what we can bring to the ballot in 2020. When I moved here to Berkeley from St. Louis, Missouri in fall 2014, the Ferguson uprising had just been erupting, and seeing those issues play out at home showed me just how important it is that places like Berkeley lead the way for the rest of the country on this issue.
Thank you. Aiden Hill, please.
When I was 16 years old, I had a police officer come into my home, point a taser at me while I was having a psychotic break. The day that Urban Shield was passed with a 5-4 vote, the single vote being our mayor, Jesse Arreguin, it was the death of Nia Wilson. I had come from San Francisco Airport to the Bay Area, specifically thinking about her and what she had to go through because of this criminal justice system and its lack of justice. I stood there and I said I was 100% against Urban Shield as a victim of police brutality. It's unfortunate that my colleagues don't see the pressing need to be 100% against police brutality right now, and I hope that every single member here will pledge to a full and completely independent police review commission moving forward if elected, as I do. Thank you.
Thank you. On to the next question. We'll begin with this one with Mr. Robinson. Do you support legislation that gives consumers the right to know about the animal products they consume and purchase in terms of animal cruelty, impact on the environment, antibiotic use, and the propensity to cause cancer? Mr. Robinson.
If I remember right, I think Berkeley may have been the first city to ban fur. We have led the way on these fronts in many ways, and we should continue to do so. In my personal life, I've tried to be smart about reducing my own meat consumption, and when we look at issues like these, we can recognize bottom-up and top-down approaches. I was supportive of the council's move to launch the Green Mondays program for city programs. I don't think it would be that extreme to maybe look at Tuesdays too, or Wednesdays, or maybe the whole week for city-launched programs. And I think we can expand initiatives like that and look to see what we can be doing further. We should also look to find creative ways to provide incentives to help our local businesses and local restaurants pursue similar measures as well. I would also want to name, I think it's proposition, is it 12? Is 12 the one on the ballot? Cage sizes? We should pass that. I support that. It's 12, right? Cool.
Okay. Thank you. Aiden Hill, please.
Yes, I believe that consumers have the right to know, and we need to especially be careful moving forward because of genetic engineering and patents on genetic materials in our food. But I do want to say very briefly that I am plant-based and an anti-speciesist. I believe that speciesism, which is the belief that human beings are of greater worth or consequence than our ecosystems, than all the animals within our species, is a fundamental flaw in how we perceive humanity. I believe that trees, rivers, non-human people should be treated as such, and that we have to allocate rights and behaviors moving forward. I don't want a salmonella outbreak because of chickens or lettuce, because of the despair of our national government. I want to make sure that everyone lives long, healthy lives, and that means returning to our roots and making sure that we eat healthy, plant-based, and don't use animals in our consumption patterns moving forward. Plus, it constitutes 40% of all greenhouse gas emissions, so let's change that.
Thank you. Ms. Rosales.
Yes, I support the legislation, definitely. We want to know what's going into the food that we put into our body. I want to go back to the militarization question. I just want to make people realize when I said that I'm a refugee from the Marcos military dictatorship, I know what it's like to live under a military. I had to leave my country because my life was in danger and my family's life was in danger. It's not something you want to go through, and I can appreciate Aidan going through it, and I'm sorry about that. But the reality is, in Berkeley, we have a department for our safety, and I hope that's what they do. So I don't want them to be attacking us. So the other thing too is that when you talk of militarization or military dictatorship, it's not so much the military hardware, it's how we lose our freedom. We lose our freedom of speech, we lose our freedom of assembly, we lose our freedom of the press. And that's really, really bad. If you can imagine waking up in the morning, there's no radio, there's no television, no nothing, and think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Aidan Hill. What will you do to improve student safety around the UC Berkeley campus?
Thank you. So firstly, I want to appreciate and extend my warm regards for the Intercollegiate League for banning high levels of alcohols at frat parties. I see that as a win for the community at large, a win for the Me Too movement, and a win for all gender minorities throughout our public education system. I also want to say that I have unique plans which include kinetic energy pads in order for us to walk and develop energy systems in order to light our way across Berkeley. Currently, we're not thinking about the light pollution that produces uneven sleep cycles amongst ourselves, and we need to make sure that we have crosswalks that have all four-way stops, that have walkways through diagonally to ensure that our student population, which mostly uses bikes, scooters, and other means of transportation, can get around safely. I have a community member within District 7 that was hit by a car off Dana Street and now lives in a third-floor building. I want to make sure that no other person suffers that fate. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rosales.
Safety is definitely should be a top priority for anybody who is a representative of District 7, not just for the students, but also for our the residents of District 7. So when campus, there is definitely more lighting, and I would think that the UC campus police should do their job. If you remember, 2 of them were caught sleeping in the lounge instead of doing the patrolling that they're supposed to be visible on campus. I think that they should be made, they got to do their job and increase that. The other thing is that I would actually, years before, there was this thing where people were carried whistles, some little protection that people can blow this whistle if they're in little danger, and then they can call for help. So that's one of the items that I think should come back into use for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
We had a similar question on safety earlier. I would reemphasize attention that needs to be paid toward lighting on the south side, toward late night transit options. We also think we need to find creative ways for UCPD and BPD to collaborate better. And the only way for the incoming city council member to ensure that is to have someone elected to that role who has an experience of working with both. Convening the Student Neighbor Advisory Council last year during my time in the student government, we were able to bring together our first responders from both the campus side and the city side and address the safety needs that happen in our neighborhoods on the south side. Also, looking forward, oh, it's just on the tip of my tongue. Where was I going with that? Oh, that's humiliating. I had something really good. Right. Okay. There's an epidemic of sexual assault on our college campuses, and having someone that seat who's familiar with the organizations that are actually addressing this most closely will be an asset to the City Council and the city. When a set of amendments on the Group Living Accommodations Ordinance came to the City Council, it became clear that the people writing them didn't know how the student groups that work on this issue really work and what they need and what's best for survivors, and we'll make sure that doesn't happen again.
Thank you. We'll begin the next question with Ms. Rosales. Please speak to how you will address racial and gender inequities within the city of Berkeley.
Berkeley is one of the most, is a leading proponent of equity and racial justice, but it's not enough. We know that. There is, Berkeley used to have a much larger minority population, but for all different reasons and purposes, that population is diminishing by the year. It's all because of the economic conditions, and I'm referring more to the African American community because I'm a little more familiar with the South Berkeley area. So I would believe that I want our council to continue to be a leader in trying to address the issues of racial disparity, inequity, and gender issues. I want us to be conscientious around the issue that there is this rising community that wants help, attention, and respect, and I would support that move.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
The University of California is the biggest employer in the area. A few months ago, ASME 3299 released a report identifying massive wage gaps along gender and racial lines within staffing at the University of California. Over the following several months, it became the role and the duty of students to rise up in solidarity with our workers to bring attention to this issue. Workers have time and time again stood by students' side as they were fighting tuition hikes or pushing back against administrators in one way or another, and it was the least we could do to return the favor. From rising up to create actions at our own commencement ceremonies or attending UC Regents meetings to condemn the UC for the racial and wage gaps that exist across our system, we made sure that this was a priority for the young people in this city. And we need to continue to do that and have the city look a little more inwardly on itself and address these issues where they exist, call them out. I also think we need to be more intentional about our commission appointments. We have an incredibly diverse city, but if you looked at many of our city commissions, frankly, you would have no idea. I'm really excited that this race looks the way it does. We have 3 incredible activist people of color running for office, and more races should look like that too.
Thank you. Aiden Hill, please.
I think the similarity between racial and gender differences is kind of like you're in an abusive relationship. If you're Black, you're always in an abusive relationship with the police, the overseeing force, those who tell us what to do, when to do it, where to go, when to not stay. And the same with gender in the sense that you're not given the voice or the right to speak as yourself, that your body is not your own. And I think there's good lessons to learn from both of these, how we move forward. We can't forget that in 2017, Milo Yiannopoulos came to out undocumented individuals at UC Berkeley, which left our campus in flames, riot police patrolling our streets, and myself being displaced as a result. We need to make sure that the Path to Care, Tang Center, Suitcase Clinic, and Planned Parenthood in general work to preserve gender equity and reproductive justice in all forms. And that's why I pledge to make sure that every menstruator has access to reproductive products, and we have PrEP for LGBTQIAPK persons. Thank you.
Thank you. And this will be our last question so that we can end on time. And we'll begin with Mr. Robinson. If you win in November, what will you do for Berkeley within your first year in office?
We're gonna get busy. We're gonna get really busy. We're gonna make sure that our commission appointments and the commission appointments of other council members do more to reflect the city and the fact that this city is about 1/3 students electing 1 of 9, including the mayor, council members, is not parity, but we can do more to make sure that qualified people are having a hand to play in the city policy that shapes our city. These young perspectives are really valuable in these city bodies, and I hope I can convince many of the other council members, some of whom will be elected this November, to follow suit. The student district is a student district, but that doesn't mean the council member representing District 7 should be the only one accounting for this massive constituency in our city. I also will make housing development my first priority in my first year. That means pressuring the university to build on every single site that it has identified for student housing development, including the gateway sites, the site that the university was previously looking at developing into a university hotel. As the chair of the real estate student board on campus, I was part of the effort to convince the university that that was silly and that we have a student housing crisis and we should be using our land more effectively.
Thank you. Aiden Hill.
I propose that the people of Berkeley will reverse development trends that we've seen for the last 20 years. If elected, I will make sure that all students are housed within 1 year, with promotions with Cat Brooks, and the graduate students with the university. We have the unique opportunity to make sure that we have housing that doesn't gentrify the Bay for all. Unlike Rigel Robinson, I support the people of People's Park, and I provide no development on that park. And I found that the University of California does not actually own People's Park. In 2001, December, there's a discretionary issue in which someone who wrote a report said the university owned the park, and the university has gone through it since. I'm doing real-time work to save the people that are our community members right now, and I'm going to continue doing that as your Berkeley City Council District 7 representative. There is no time to waste when winter is approaching us. We need to make the change to a healthy democracy now.
Thank you. Ms. Rosales.
If elected, one of the main top issues for me would really address the affordable housing, the homeless community, and safety is top in our District 7. Also, what I would like to do is there are already 8 people plus the mayor, or 7 people plus the mayor, who has been talking about homeless housing and homeless issues and all of this on council. I would need to talk to them first, find out what it is that they are proposing, because I want this whole housing, affordable housing, to really move forward. Last week or 2 weeks ago, there was a development that was supposed to happen on Spenger's Park, and that will provide 50% affordable housing. I want to know why and how we can actually work on things that could make affordable housing more available. The other thing, of course.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to the closing statements. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes for their closing statement, and we'll do the reverse order of how we began. So the first closing statement will come from Ms. Rosales.
Thank you all for being here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to make my presentation to you. I'm running for this seat because I really am concerned about District 7. District 7 is a unique and a very much a part of Berkeley, hugely a big population, a student population. But what people forget is District 7 has long-time residents. People who have lived in Berkeley, lived in District 7 for 7, 10, 20, 30, 50 years. And I feel that our community has been neglected. I want to represent both the long-time residents, homeowners, tenants, and renters, and I also want to represent our student population. In addition, there is the small business district on District 7. Telegraph Avenue used to be the place where people go to and want to visit when they come to Berkeley. This time, they try to avoid it as much as possible. I want to revitalize Telegraph Avenue so that it becomes a place where it becomes a bustling business district, that we can get sales tax revenue that can further advance our support for and advance quality of life services without further burdening our homeowners, tenants, and students. So for me, running in this district and running for be a council member, this is not a career move for me. This is coming from my heart because I have always fought for people's rights and people's for equality and against inequality and injustice. Vote for me, and I will make sure I will support the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Aiden Hill is next.
According to the California Housing Partnership, low income and people of color suffered the most as housing prices rose from 2011 and displacement pressured Berkeley residents, including myself, to the streets. I am not the candidate of the establishment. I am not the candidate of the establishment. I am free. I'm happy to receive the endorsement of Michael Delacour, who has multiple generations of children living at People's Park, and I want to revitalize Telegraph Avenue with information communication technologies. I will ensure every student is housed, and that includes pressuring the chancellor to convert the unoccupied mansion at UC Berkeley into supportive student housing for sexual assault survivors. I believe in 2018, the people of Berkeley have the will and the power to make this life free and beautiful for everyone. To disregard the politics of old and choose something brand new. I invite you to celebrate 150 years of light and build a Berkeley that works for all of us. And in the name of democracy and in the name of free speech, the time is now to unite. Our mighty sons are true, will strive for us anew, and win for California through and through. Go Bears.
Thank you. And now Mr. Robinson.
Go Bears. Thank you for that. Thank you all for being here and for hearing what we have to say. My name is Roger Robinson. I'm running for City Council in District 7 because Berkeley has always been a bit of a home to me, long before it was a literal home to me. My great-grandmother actually found a home here years ago when she took classes at the College of Agriculture, and then her daughter, my grandmother, would find a home here years later. But that was a very different time. Tuition wasn't exactly what it is today. And while Berkeley has always been my dream school, beneath the blue and gold, the cracks are showing. The most recent housing survey data from the campus indicates that 10% of UC Berkeley students will experience housing insecurity at some point during their time here. And that doesn't mean that 10% of students are all out on the streets. It means that 10% of students at some point will be couch surfing, will fall through on a lease, will be packing 8 people into apartments that should only be housing 4, and that's unacceptable. We have a lot of work to do. Whoever is elected to represent this district will need to bridge the barriers between the unique constituencies of District 7 to address the tension between town and gown. And I believe that the only person that will be able to do that effectively is someone who has been bridging that gap for years. And that's what I've been doing in my spaces on campus, working to elevate student voices and elevate the voices of the broader community on campus. I'm an open listener and an active collaborator, and I think that's why I've been endorsed by every single member of the Berkeley City Council. That's why I've been endorsed by student leaders, like the current and most immediate student regent, and the presidents, and all 3 vice presidents of the Campus Student Association. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your questions.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone in the audience for joining us this evening. Hold on one sec. Thank you all for being here this evening. If you're planning to leave before the next forum, please do so quietly. And also, when you leave, you'll find a whole table full of information about the upcoming election, including the Voters Edge website that the league sponsors, where you can find information about each and every local measure, state measure, and also information about the candidates. So please join me in thanking our candidates this evening for District 7. We very much appreciate their time and attention.